be here now.
Yes.
Such a weird statement. Like, because every time I would think of like being here now, I couldn't feel it. For me, I gotta be able to integrate it. I gotta be able to feel it. If I can't feel it, there's something wrong with it. I gotta keep digging. So I was thinking about that statement, and I was thinking, you know, I don't know what here is. What the hell is here?
Great question.
You know, what is now?
Every now moment?
Yeah.
Be here now, like in every now moment,
Yeah.
in every parallel universe,
Exactly.
in every possible outcome that could or couldn't happen, that did or didn't come. Like, yes, what is here?
So I tried to modify the statement so it would feel that I could integrate it. And the only thing I could come up with, and that might sound really weird because it's the contrary, it was be everywhere at all times.
Yeah,
and when I was like, be everywhere, and then I could settle into that, oh yeah, I can be everywhere, and I can be at all time.
I believe that each and every one of us has the power within ourselves to create the life that we really want. And I want to help give you the tools to make that happen. I'm Danica Patrick, and I'm pretty intense.
For the second phase of my interview with Nassim Haramein, a brilliant scientist, now we go into the real nuts and bolts and the science of reality and what we are as human beings, truly just what we are made of, as well as reality as we perceive it and how we relate to it, and then how we can use it to better our lives. I mean, isn't that the point? I feel like for me at the end of the day, it ends up being about why am I going into all of this information? And it ends up being because I want to be happier and more joyful and more manifest more of the things that make me happy and that make life exciting and interesting. So we get into the nature of reality. Please enjoy this fascinating episode. Someone was explaining dimensions to me because dimensions kind of get me a little bit confused.
Yeah.
And in her explanation, I was like, wow, so we just end up becoming everything. We are every potentiality that did and didn't exist, which means you have to become everything. So maybe can you break down dimensions?
Right.
In a way that someone like me is going to understand?
You know, I have an issue with the word dimensions because it's thought of in many different ways. It's not defined so well because the spiritual person that's using the word dimension is thinking of a whole other world.
Okay.
The physicist that's using the word dimension is thinking of another Cartesian plane or a vector, you know, in space.
Sure.
And those are two different things. So it's hard to define. So I tend to not use the concept of dimension in the sense of another world. I like to think of it as scales. Okay, so
like a scale
no,
or
not a weighing scale.
Oh, scale like a fish?
No, like scales like you know, you have atoms that make cells, that makes bodies, that make planet, that makes stars, right?
Okay.
And so imagine that you were an atom.
Okay.
And you would experience the world the way you experience it as an atom. So you would look at other atoms, they might look like stars in your sky and all this stuff. And your world would look a very specific way. And then all of a sudden I grew you up to a different scale. Like your scale today. And you wouldn't recognize the world.
Okay.
You would say, oh my God, I've gone to another universe. What is going on? Like, what is this, right? But you're in the same universe. You just change scale.
But the shift, you wouldn't even know it. You'd just be in a new reality.
Right. Yes, exactly. So that's that.
Maybe I'm jumping.
But that's a segue we could go into. But basically, you know, think of it as like your perspective, literally your coordinates in space-time and how you see reality and the scale at which you experience it defines a lot of how you interpret the world, right?
Sure.
But you happen to be made of smaller scales and smaller scales and smaller scales and smaller scales. So all these other coordinates in space, all these other perspective, all these other realities are within you.
So is it fractal?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe explain what fractals are, because it's fascinating, and I just learned what it was. So
Right, fractals are mathematical equations that feed back on themselves. So that you take the answer, you feed it back to the equation, and it comes out with another answer, and you keep feeding it back, and it grows. That's what I was saying earlier. It grows very high level of complexity very quickly from a simple set of information to start with, right? So you're made out of these divisions of space, fractally dividing. This feedback is, it's not just coming at one scale. The feedback's happening at all the scales. That's how it can self-organize. And I can go to the proton. The proton's already small, right? 100 trillion atoms in a cell. A cell is small. An atom is really small. A proton is teeny in the middle of the atom.
oh wow.
And then there's subatomic particles inside the proton, but then you end up at like a frequency that's called the Planck scale, in which the particle at that level is so teeny that if I grew it to be a grain of sand, the proton that it's in would be the size from Alpha Centauri to our sun,
Which is where?
which is like 40 trillion kilometers.
Okay.
Right? That'd be the size of the bubble.
Wow.
Okay.
For the grain of sand.
No,
To represent the scale. For the proton.
Yeah.
To represent the scale.
Yeah. So this particle is so small that if it's a grain of sand, then the proton is 40 trillion kilometers, right? So imagine that's inside you. That's oscillating inside you. This is the source of the information flow. This is how these equations were solved in my physics, and we're able to predict very precisely, extremely precisely, the radius of the proton, which is 40 trillion kilometers bigger, right? So the fact that the equation is able to take something so small and then scale it and predict the correct size of the proton is remarkable. And then that was verified in accelerators in Switzerland. And, you know, my prediction was a problem because it's 4% smaller than the standard model. So, you know, that got in some
But you were right.
I was correct. And I am correct because the CODATA, which is the institution that sets the standard for all the constants in physics, adopted that radius, you know, in
Your radius.
Correct. In 2018. So now it's the official radius. So
That's so cool.
so yeah, but it comes from the smallest thing, you know, imaginable, this equation, saying that the proton is actually made out of trillions of these smaller things.
And is this because of fractal, the nature of fractals?
That's right.
That you know the ratio?
Exactly. When you figure out the pattern, then you can calculate it and it gives the right answer.
So what are we? Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so we're this infinite nature of division.
Wow.
Right? And you were saying about being everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, when you calculate the amount of these little particles in a proton, you can calculate their energy. And we know that energy, you know, can equal mass if we multiply by the speed of light square, right? Like E equals mc squared.
Yeah.
So when you calculate the mass or the energy of the system, mass might confuse people, but the energy of the system, you find all the information, all the energy of the universe, meaning you find inside a proton the mass of the universe, right? In terms of these.
That's crazy.
Yes. So imagine you're made out of 100 trillion protons in each cell, and each one of those is a conduit for the information of all the other protons in the universe. Like they're intricately connected.
So we should now talk about quantum entanglement, which is
That's
obviously such a fascinating topic. I mean, it's, you know, on a really, really micro level when you know, it's a mother's intuition of their child, right? And like, oh, I think something's wrong, and you call, and sure enough. And
Right.
I mean, so that's like obviously an extremely small, but that's a human way to give a little insight into entanglement and how. So go into that because it's like fascinating. I mean,
Yeah, we're right there in what I was describing.
yeah, okay, great.
The fact that
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's good. You're ahead of me.
No.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm ahead of you on any of this.
I should teach you math. You could help us.
I would love to. I mean, I think I would.
Yeah, it's just a language. Actually, I'm not. I do math, but I get a lot of help from good physicists that helps me.
And we just come up with crazy ideas like, why does the dollar have an eye on the top of the pyramid? And then people just start to think about things. And then somebody else does the math. And I'm like, I have another odd idea. Here you go.
Right.
Well, because if we're connected to everything, essentially, I have the information.
Yep.
Like you have the information. Every single person has all of the information of the universe within them.
That's right.
Especially based on quantum entanglement.
Right.
At a Planck level, we're connected to everything or something like that. I'm
Very
saying
good.
a lot of words that I don't completely
really
understand, but this is vodka. No, I'm just kidding.
That was really good, actually. Yeah. Well, okay. I was actually thinking about this on the beach the other day, about this statement. It was sunset. I was thinking about. The problem is that I was thinking about equations, and then at one point I stopped myself and I thought, there's a sunset, it's beautiful, it's amazing, maybe I should be here now. And then I was thinking, that statement, be here now.
Yes.
Such a weird statement. Like, because every time I would think of like being here now, I couldn't feel it. And for me, for me is like, all of the physics I've written, all the concepts, all the philosophy, everything, for me, I gotta be able to integrate it. I gotta be able to feel it. If I can't feel it, there's something wrong with it. I gotta keep digging. So I was thinking about that statement, and I was thinking, I don't know what here is. What the hell is here?
Great question.
What is now?
Every now moment?
Yeah.
Be here now, like in every now moment,
Yeah.
in every parallel universe,
Exactly.
in every possible outcome that could or couldn't happen, that did or didn't come. Like, yes, what is here?
So I tried to modify the statement so it would feel that I could integrate it. And the only thing I could come up with, and that might sound really weird because it's the contrary, it was be everywhere at all times.
Yeah,
and when I was everywhere. Like, be everywhere, and then I could settle into that. Oh yeah, I can be everywhere, and I can be at all times. And then I was like, oh yeah, now I'm here, right? Like, because I'm everywhere. And so that links to what we were talking about, that we found in equations. Well, as I was saying, in my equation, I found that it seems like the protons or the particles are entangled. And we're discovering, we found entanglement a long time ago with the development of quantum theory. Einstein called it spooky action at distance. It was a consequence of the quantum theory that was written at the time. Einstein thought it was wrong, and he wrote those papers to disprove the approach that was being, and it turned out to be correct, meaning he was right that it was wrong, but he was wrong that it couldn't happen. And I want to clarify.
Explain.
Yes. So basically, if you take, so it was discovered from the math that was being written in quantum theory at the time, that all of a sudden particles could be connected at a distance instantaneously. That you tickle this particle over here, and the other one, if it's across the universe, if it's entangled, would start laughing, right? And very shortly, like in our evolution, we were able to measure that in laboratory and measure it so that particles were far away from each other enough that even at the speed of light, it wouldn't have time to go and change the other one before we measure it. So we were able to measure that definitely particles can be entangled. And at this point, we're able to entangle larger objects, which thought it couldn't be done because, it thought to be at temperatures that were not acceptable for quantum theory. Like now we can entangle diamonds so that you hit this diamond over there with a laser and the other one is acting like it's being hit by a laser and so on. And so that's happening. But it was not described mathematically clearly, meaning the consequence of the theory was saying, yeah, particles can do this, but we're not clear how it's happening, right?
Right.
And now, recently, theories are coming forward, certainly mine early on, and then others from very good physicists, the top guys, showing that actually there's micro wormholes that are connecting these things. And wormholes are a consequence of Einstein field equation. That's why I was saying he was right, meaning he was wrong that it couldn't be done, but he was right that it wasn't from the specific equations that were given at the time that this was happening, that there was something more classical, which is a wormhole. And so there's these little tunnels that connects particles. This is called ER equals EPR in technical jargon.
In math, which I don't understand.
And basically showing that, and then imagine a particle that falls into a black hole that's entangled with another one, right?
Right.
And then the other one falls into another black hole.
Sure.
Now these black holes are entangled.
Now the black holes are entangled.
Yes, and we know particles are falling into black holes since
All
the
the
beginning of
time,
time, right? So now black holes are entangled, and the particles are entangled. And all of a sudden, it's like very quickly you come to conclude, wow, the whole thing is entangled, right? Although we don't see it clearly, because when we look at a particle, when we tickle it over here, we might not be aware there's another particle on the other side of the universe that's laughing when we tickle it, because we don't have a measurement on that.
Right, we're not over there looking at it.
That's right.
We're not measuring.
So we only see the entanglement for particles that we entangle ourselves and that we can measure both sides, right?
So what does this mean for us?
So that means that we live in a neural network, literally, that spans from the infinitely small to the infinitely big. And just recently, papers were published showing that mathematically, when you look at superclusters filaments, there's these huge filaments of plasma that connect supercluster in these amazing, structures.
Are those pretty pictures of the colors and the...
Exactly. Yeah, they look just like neural network in your brain.
That's literally what I was just about to say. Like, I imagine, because I'm not, again, I mean, I have a GED. Like, I didn't even go to college.
Yes.
But, like, I get these ideas of things, and I'm like, I'm like, the brain, the way that it fires, like, the whole, like, webbing, I'm like, that's the universe. That's how we're connected.
Right.
So you're saying is that what you're saying?
That's correct. Yeah, well, we're starting to see evidence of it. We live, and then there's physics that's being written, not only by me, but others, that are showing, if you write physics in such a way to describe reality as a neural network, things starts to add up properly. And so think of everything being entangled, and since you're made out of that stuff, you're entangled with the whole thing. And your brain might be, you see, your consciousness might not be some chemical change in your brain. Your chemical change in your brain is just a result of the information going through the neural network. And so your consciousness is not inside your body, but your consciousness is the relationship of you with this field. You can think of a web of information at all the scales that connects all the scales. And this is how I wrote these equations. I'm finishing this paper that I've been working on for 3 years. I've been going at it for 30 years, but this is and it's coming all full circle. This is a crazy part, is that from studying ancient civilization and these symbols and all this stuff from the old times when I was in the van, living by myself, agnostic, crazy guy, studying 20 hours a day.
Somebody's got to be crazy.
Somebody's got to go at it.
Crazy people change the world.
Well, yeah, typically,
Or figure it out. Actually, they're not figuring out the world, they're figuring out the universe.
Well.
Or the multiverse, or the whatever.
Yeah.
The entire...
The fractal world.
Existence of us.
Exactly. And what's crazy is that these thoughts I was having then are coming full circle, but now with the equations. And
so that's just interesting, right? That you've had the thought without the information, without the proof,
right,
or the science, or the math,
the language,
But yet you knew it
Right. And
because you're everything.
right.
You already know.
You
I knew that.
already-
I just don't know how to get to it.
Exactly. You didn't need to go to college. I mean, I'm a high school dropout, right?
Oh, right. Cheers to that.
I got in the
feel-
ski industry. I got in the climbing industry.
You're a
like,
surfer.
Yeah, I'm a surfer. I'm, like you got into sport industry, driving cars, whatever. But the fact is, and I teach this for all this time, and people recognize it because they can feel it.
Yeah.
And because they can feel
You
it,
just know it.
they know it.
Yeah.
And if it's true, they know it. And any great discovery that was made in history was because somebody had a gut feeling.
Yes.
Somebody, not the equation first, right?
Right.
But the gut feeling,
Right.
maybe this is how it works. And then the equation, and then the equation supports it or not, right? Maybe you're a little wrong, but maybe it directs you. So
Yep.
it's the relationship between the outside world and your internal dialogue. You know that internal dialogue you have,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Who is it with?
Well, right. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, in the book Untethered Soul, it was like, if you're having thoughts, how do you know you're having thoughts?
Right.
What's looking at you to know you're having thoughts?
Exactly.
It's like something is beyond or above or outside
Right.
of us. Otherwise, like the ocean's not thinking like, I'm a wave, here I go.
Right.
It's just the ocean.
Right.
Right? So how do I know that I have a wave or a thought?
Exactly. And so basically you are the universe talking to yourself. You're having the dialogue with all of creation. All of creation is listening
Yep.
to what you're saying. So all of a sudden, wow, you have a responsibility, right? It's like I had an experience. I lived in Big Island for a while on Hawaii. On the Big Island in the Kealakekua Bay. And in Kealakekua Bay, the dolphins come. And they love to swim with humans, right? And so we used to go swimming with them. This is a long time ago, in the early 2000s. And for the longest time, the local community would tell me, oh yeah, dolphins can hear everything you think. They're psychic and so on. And I was like, yeah, okay, local folklore, I had fun with them, but I didn't think they could. And then at one point, I was, after like a few months of swimming with them almost every day, I was thinking, wow, I befriended this young dolphin, and we used to go, swim twirling and jumping and all this stuff. And every morning,
Every mermaid in existence person that feels like they're a mermaid, I have one of those friends, is very jealous of this story right now.
yeah, it was amazing.
But anybody can do that, I guess, right? And that's what you're going to start to get to.
Right. Well, basically, at one point I was wondering, because when she was playing with all the other dolphins, they would bump against each other and all this. And, I can free dive to like 110 feet and so on. At 60 feet, I can hang for a while. So I would go down with her and then twirl back up and all this. But she would never, ever bump against me or touch me or anything. And if I tried to touch her, she would move her body exactly
Really?
the same distance.
Why is that?
And I didn't know. And so I was thinking, as I was swimming with her at one point, why don't they touch us and so on? Maybe they think, kind of humans are kind of gross and, they're kind of weird, and then I thought maybe I didn't give her permission to touch me. So I thought in my head, I give you permission to touch me. And she just rubbed all over me, like in that instant. And, and then I realized, oh my God, they can hear us. And I thought, oh my God, what have I been thinking all this time?
Right, like what other thoughts have I been having and what were those things doing?
Exactly. And so the reason I was telling you this story is that when you realize, oh, maybe I'm in a neural network of the universe, and I'm actually interacting with it, and actually these inner thoughts and this inner dialogue I'm having is actually a dialogue with the whole, then you realize, okay, I have a responsibility about what I'm telling the universe.
Right.
What am I doing? And it's not like, hey, I get angry, I get pissed off, I start swearing, I do all kinds of stuff. Like
Called being human, right?
Yeah, exactly. We fail all the time. But how much of that is happening and how much of the other is happening? Like how constructive I am,
Yeah.
Like I start to edit. When I realize that, I start to edit my thoughts, my internal dialogue, not just let it run, because we have such a negative bias on ourselves.
Why is that? What is if we're if we are the universe and we have this power,
Mm-hmm.
why is it that as a species we are so hard on ourselves and have such negative thoughts and are so limiting?
Well, I think that because we don't know how beautiful we are, how incredible, our existence is, that we even are here thinking about it. We don't, we lose. If we think we're separate and we're the result of some random event and it's just kind of like a luck that we got here and we're going to disappear, the universe won't care, then, it's, you can have a negative bias because you don't actually know what you are, who you are. But when you discover this, doesn't mean your negative bias just goes away, right?
Right.
Like when I see myself in the mirror as I walk to the bathroom in the morning, so, I get many thoughts of like, oh my God, I look awful, right? But I try to edit them as they come up. But basically, realizing and appreciating the amazing miracle we are. We have to know we are to be able to do that. If we don't know, then our society is certainly not gonna help us feel good about ourselves, right? Our society is very much set up to be critical, and if you're not exactly like this, and if you're not exactly like that, it's not acceptable, and so on. Like, you see, this is the other thing, is that I think that an evolutionary step for humanity is to realize we're all part of the same source, right? That would be the first step, right? We're all part of the same source. We're all part of the same field, the same neural network. And then from there, this idea of separation becomes less and less. And mutual support becomes more and more important because you realize, wow, in order to help me, I got to be able to help the whole network. I got to be a productive, positive impact on the network, right? So then it becomes easier to control, meaning that, we have laws that tells us what's right and what's wrong, right? You can do this, but you cannot do this. And I imagine that eventually an advanced society doesn't require this because internally you know what's right and what's wrong, right?
I would like to think the same thing. I would like to think that as you ascend, as your consciousness or your self-awareness opens up, that there's no need for even government on some level, because you are your own governing body and you don't operate under lower frequency, under a lower frequency existence of things that would create problems.
Right. They might be social organization, but they would be built more like a neural network. It would be a distributed nodes, decentralized and so on, so that, it would be different. Imagine if everybody has gravitational drives, which we will have if we make it.
What does that mean? Gravitational drives.
Yeah, that we are able to have a spaceship that doesn't use fuel.
Like cars, drives, rides, right?
Right.
Like, okay.
So it just distorts space-time in that region so that you can get lift, right? So all of a sudden you can go to the moon for the weekend. You can go to Jupiter, whatever. Like all of a sudden the concept of governance changes.
Totally.
Right? It would be totally different.
Totally.
Like, so you're on Jupiter. I mean, there might be a different, more localized body of, or organization and so on. So it might look much less like a centralized body like we have today, but much more, network kind of structure.
So are we essentially an aspect of the universe organizing itself and then as soon as we do, it rolls into another, it's like sort of like the universe problem solving itself into expansion on
Yes,
some level?
exactly. And
Like we just go helping, like we as a consciousness, like, or as a self-aware network, as a neural network of information, now it just goes sort of to the next problem or the next species, the next existence. Because
Right.
I've heard there was somebody that was, I was like, what's the point of being here? And they're like, well, you expand into the point, we basically raise our frequency, our consciousness enough that we sort of transcend, ascend, and then we go do that for the next sort of existence.
Yeah.
Or another existence. As if, from a more esoteric sort of
I see.
like the Palladians and the Octurians and the whatever, and
Oh,
they're like helping us from a planet, from other star systems.
Right.
So I'm kind of piecing together a lot of my thoughts, but
Right.
but it more breaks down to like organization of information. Like,
Yes.
are we waiting to organize our information so that we can then go,
Right.
the universe expands on that level and then you go to the next level of?
Yeah, you can see it in biological evolution, right? On our planet, I used to hang out with a great evolutionary biologist, Elizabeth Saturus, that was she used to tell me this. It really hit me hard when she told me this. Is that bacterial system, like monocellular bacterial system, early on in our evolution, almost went extinct because they were competing. And at the time, the pollution they were producing was oxygen, and it was killing them, right? They were dying, and they almost went extinct until they started to collaborate. And then they made, multicellular system that could breathe the oxygen, right? And eventually produce our evolution, right? So it's like we go
Cyclical.
through. Yeah,
We're doing the same thing.
exactly.
History from a theological standpoint, from the mythological stories, like stories are cyclical.
Right.
Existence is cyclical from an expansion standpoint.
Exactly.
It's simple and then it gets more and more complex.
Yeah, it's like the neural network jump quantas in
Yeah.
organization, but at each level it has to unify.
Yeah.
It has to connect, and then as soon as it does that, then it can go to the next level. Imagine if humanity today all of a sudden became unified, meaning that races was not a problem anymore, that borders were not a problem anymore, that we just realized, oh, we're all on the same planet and we have to collaborate to get to the next level. We have everything we need to really transform our civilization into space colonies and all this. But that has to happen. It's like in a laboratory, if you take a surface like a balloon and you put energy onto it, like you oscillate it, it will go into chaotic modes. And more energy you put in, more chaotic it becomes. And when it gets to the point where it's like at the maximum of energy, gets so chaotic, the surface tension of the balloon might break and the whole thing explode and then you're done. But if the surface tension of the balloon is strong enough and you put a little more energy, all of a sudden it organizes into a higher frequency and it becomes coherent again, right? It rings at a higher frequency, so that means it can have more information, and it has a coherent behavior that's not so destructive, that's not so chaotic. It goes into order. And so we're right at that point in our evolution. I think that we have this opportunity to go to the next level.
Do you think we will? Or are we going to screw it up?
I think we're running against the clock, and that we have a great opportunity to do it, and it's gonna require everybody to get involved. The fact that you're doing this show, it's gonna take everybody to get involved to be able to like bring this level of awareness to the planet,
Right.
and to bring the science that goes with it.
Right.
Because I can write the physics, and the physics I'm about to publish are remarkable. I need it to be published at the highest level. I need it to be acknowledged by other, and all this. That requires that there's the willingness, that there is, to think at that level, the math speaks for itself, and actually college students, with a little help, will be able to follow the math. So,
What about GED level students?
you will. I'll show
Well,
you.
you have a resonance. There's a school.
Right.
What's it called?
It's called the Resonance Science Foundation.
Right.
Yeah, and we have a course on there.
I should enroll.
Yeah, it's great. We have 100,000 people taking a course right now, approximately. I think we're just under 100,000, and we're about to add. So there's 6 modules. Takes a few months to go through, or a few weeks, depending how dedicated you are. But we're about to add module 7 and module 8, which will explain the new paper. So, you'll see actually the concepts are very palatable. If you're not interested in understanding the math, the concepts are very palatable. Like, I can teach this to a teenager, and they will follow. They will understand. It basically describes scales resonating at different frequency, and coupling, the relationship of these oscillating frequency from infinitely small to infinitely big. And then you just do the math, and you end up, oh, wow, there's the proton. Oh, there's the electron. Oh, wow, there's, the Rydberg constant. Oh, here's the gravitational constant. Oh, wow, look, this is the universe. Oh, this is the temperature of the universe.
Because of the nature of fractals, whether it's like sacred geometry or, trying to think of all of the different things that I've seen that are mathematical, but that the ratios, like the golden ratio,
right,
like all of those things, they're universal.
Right. And you find them in nature everywhere.
Right.
So there's order, there's structure. It's just we hadn't put all the pieces together.
Right.
I didn't do anything fantastic.
You have all the pieces.
Well, I didn't do anything fantastic. They give me, like, the pieces were all there. They just hadn't been put in this order.
Yeah, but it kind of leads me to a thought that I've had so many times, which has to do, and you mentioned it earlier, but it has to do with the, this, like, construct of school and the books and the learning and fitting inside the box. And, thank goodness that you felt this drive to learn your own way, because it's through asking those kinds of questions and learning in a new way. It's like the definition of insanity. If you want the same result, just keep doing what you're doing. Like, if you want to keep existing in the same universe, just keep reading the same books. But you need to ask new questions and write new books.
Exactly. And in order to ask new questions, you have to be able to be on your own enough, right? Meaning, you can't just be getting fed information from the outside. It's got to come from inside.
Okay, explain your inside, would you? Yeah. Where do you get it from? When you say you go inside, what are the moments that you have? Explain when you have a vision, an epiphany, a moment, a thought. Like, where does it arrive and how does it arrive?
Well, my first epiphany, I think, in terms of physics, was probably when I was around 11 years old. And I luckily, my family came in contact with an Indian guru at the time that was teaching meditation. And I learned to meditate. And that, at the time, was a very, unusual thing to do, never mind at the age of 11. But when I started meditating, at first I was like, wow, this is seriously boring. You're 11, right?
Am I doing this right? What
Yeah.
am I doing?
What am I doing? I'm just
What's for
thinking
lunch?
about lunch. Exactly. So but then eventually when I quiet things down a little, I got this, I was thinking like, what is this meditation thing? What am I doing? And then I thought, well, I'm turning my senses inwards, right? And I'm kind of listening to what's going on in there. And so my first epiphany was, oh, there's a world inside and there's a world outside. And in between is a boundary. And there's information going in the boundary and there's information going out the boundary, right? When I do things, I'm putting information into the outside, right? And I'm capturing information from the outside through my senses. So I was thinking, oh, so that was my first thought in this evolution of physics is, oh, so the exchange of information could be the source of the energy of creation, right?
There it was.
And that's all I needed. Really, that's all I need. The rest has been just
the next
extending
layer
on
deeper
that.
is, how did you trust that? Or like, how did it feel? Why did that feel different?
Well, I was an unusual kid, and I didn't fit in the educational system very well. Although my father was, revered as one of the greatest child psychologists. He was,
Oh, wow.
he was the protege of Piaget Institute in Switzerland it's like the father of child psychology.
Oh, wow.
And so on. I just didn't fit in the educational system. I was just my father's worst nightmare. And
it's only natural that he would get a doozy as someone who didn't want to be in that, right? Like,
exactly.
Oh my God, life gives us interesting lessons.
I was a good guinea
mirrors.
pig. Yeah, exactly. So he learned to deal with me, but basically, and I learned to deal with him. But and we love each other. So for me, it was like, okay, I wasn't getting from the world around me a very coherent picture of reality.
Yeah.
And I had these deep questions like, what is reality? How did I get here? The question you're asking.
Right.
And that everybody should ask. We can't tend to go on the, on the mouse wheel, that's turning in the world, and we forget to ask deeper questions. So for me, it was like, because I was alone, like I didn't get along with the educational system. I didn't really have many friends and all this. I reflected on the nature of reality deeply. And
you had a lot of quiet time.
Yeah, I had a lot of quiet time.
Inner and outer worlds.
Exactly. And then skiing and climbing, I was
nature.
Nature. I could see the beauty everywhere. I could see the relationship between things in nature that supported each other, right? Like you get a bee, you get a flower, right? Like, and I was wondering, why in the universe put the flower on one planet and the bee on another? That would have not worked, right? So how did it know to put them on the same planet, right? And things like that. And so I was like, really, but I was in the ski industry. I was successful. It was a long journey. You know how that is when you want to get to the elite of a sport.
Of course, yeah.
And I was well known. I was one of the top guys in, instructor in Canada.
Oh, wow, now you're gonna have to go teach me.
And
I need the help.
That'll be fun.
I had like
go
2 lessons.
dance with gravity.
I'll drive there and you teach me how to ski.
Okay. Oh, I'm a terrible
driver?
No, I'm a terrible
teacher.
No, how do you say, backseat driver?
Oh, got it. Oh,
you're gonna scare the crap out of me.
Oh, got it. I thought you were gonna tell me how to do it, and I was like, bring it on. That's fine.
No.
I'm coachable.
No, I trust you on that. I'm sure you got that down. But yeah, so I had this accident, and I had been for years doing physics at night on the side, but I hadn't, in the ski industry, I wasn't going to start talking physics to all my friends and stuff. So I didn't say anything to anybody. especially at the time, I was doing a lot of ancient civilization stuff as well, and symbolism and all this. So I didn't say anything.
We haven't.
But then I had the accident a few years, into after I started to talk, and because I retired from the ski industry, not because I was injured, but because for me it was a sign that I needed to do something else. And what's funny about it is that when I started to talk about this, then the rumor went around the ski industry is like, yeah, Nassim got hit by a snowmobile and now he's doing physics,
That's not the whole story.
Right. But he's like, yeah, we're not sure if he's got all his head.
No, it's not all.
Yeah.
He's not all up here.
He's not all there.
Yet he's changing the world. So it seems to me though, like this is the last question. So if it sounds like you've answered your ultimate question that you had at 11.
Yeah.
So what is your next question?
Well, the beauty is that you can have a very high thought, right? Like a very general high thought about something that might be very true. But as you explore that thought and actually work out the details of it, you learn so much more. That,
It just continues to expand the question circle.
Exactly. And you learn more and more, and it's like you're going down the fractal path. And
so was another one.
Yes. And it's like all of a sudden, you find this new equation, for instance, right? And you go, wow, what's this telling me, right? And you can see that it's related to the general thought you had, but now you're integrating the mechanics on how it's actually happening, right? And you can calculate the frequency, you can calculate the energy, you can calculate the force, and now it's like you feel it inside your body happening. And so to me, I've just gained deeper and deeper understanding of me, as a result, that just blows my doors again yesterday, right?
Right.
Meaning like it's not stop. I keep finding deeper stuff that just blows my mind, all related to this general thought, but knowing the mechanics is so fundamental. It has a deep impact on your awareness, your consciousness. It transforms you at a really deep level, and as a result, it props up the next question.
It's like the science and the equations organize you. That's how it feels in my head. Like it organizes. It's proof, and it's like it's tangible. It's like it organizes you, and then you go to the next theory or idea,
right?
And then you organize at that level,
right?
That's how it kind of feels in my body, like
just
once
like
you've
that
proven
neural
it, yes.
network growing.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It organizes at each level, and then at each level there's technological consequences
and benefits.
Yeah, exactly. That are not just philosophical or, nice mathematics that kind of works out. It has implication and like energy production, control of forces, and so on, that really can transform the world and transform your capacity to be harmonious with nature, harmonious with the world, to work with the world, to put your energy production little turbine in the natural flow of creation, right? So that you create positive impact on your environment, and then your society becomes not only sustainable, it thrives, because the universe truly thrives,
So then ultimately knowing what you know and what you've proven now, what is the fundamental lesson that comes from that directly applies to how you live your life?
Well, certainly, like I was saying earlier, you start editing your thoughts. You start,
Right.
like what am I producing? How am I producing?
Right.
Like what am I feeding the universe? What am I teaching the universe? Right?
Right.
Am I limiting my thoughts? Am I
Yeah.
limiting myself? Do I have a negative bias that because if I'm feeding that to the feedback, well, then it's probably gonna have some negative effect in my
Right.
surrounding, and so on. And as I want to say clearly, like we all fail. It's not like I'm able to maintain, this higher thought continuum.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I think that's important to for someone that's proven this out. You still are human, essentially.
Absolutely. And, if you ask my staff, they'll tell you, because I get upset or, I get cut off on the highway and,
But you know what? Sometimes the universe collapses certain things, right?
Exactly.
Like things collapse and they
Yeah.
just,
things
so
collide and
it's just
it's part of the undoing, redoing kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so you have to be patient with yourself. You have to know that that's part of the evolution.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
not a separate part. It's part. Like to learn to walk, you fell. Right? You fell and then you figured out how to walk and then you fell again. And this at the deepest level, you start to realize the miracle of life. That's another implication. You start to have deep level of appreciation, for every moment that you're alive. And hopefully you're able to take a moment every day to express that to the universe, to express your love to the universe and to receive from the universe. Because, a lot of us are good at expressing love, not so good at receiving it, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing, it's so it has implication in how you live your life every day. But as well, it has implication in technology that will change the way we do things.
I can't wait.
And so, all of a sudden, if we have access to almost like the density of the vacuum at the Planck scale is 10 to the 93 grams per centimeter cube. So just so the listeners understand what that means, the mass of the universe is 10 to the 55 grams. So that's the energy of all the mass, all the matter in the universe, 10 to the 55 grams per
That's
volume
all the energy of the universe.
of the universe. So in a centimeter cube of Planck oscillators of space, those little particles, there's 10 to the 93
What?
grams. So there's 38 orders of magnitude more energy than all the energy in the universe.
And this is the tubes, right? This is the connection because
Right.
it's both, right?
Exactly. That is the information moving through. That's the energy of the universe through this field. And so if we extract, we just got to take one of those tubes and plug it into our machine. And if we just tap, it's like plugging into the universal net, right? All of a sudden, if we extracted 1/1000,000,000th of the energy in a centimeter cube of space, we would have enough energy to run the whole planet for thousands of years. Okay? So then all of a sudden, energy becomes infinite. You have as much energy as you want. So then the value of things is no longer how rare it is, because now you can go mine gold on any planet you want. You can do anything you want. So all of a sudden, it's what you're doing with it. Yeah. It's creativity that's important. That's the true value, right? And so basically, it will change things very fundamentally from one simple discovery, is that energy is everywhere and we can have access to it, And then it implies as well, if you apply that to Einstein field equation, that you can warp space-time. That means you can have warp drives. That means you can overcome gravity. That means you can...
Okay, is this happening in our lifetime?
Oh, yes. this is on its way. Warp drives have been worked on at NASA currently. There's many laboratories around the world working on this. Gravity control, I believe, is going to happen in our lifetime. So
we're going to Mars.
Yeah.
We're going to Jupiter.
We'll make
I'd
you
like
a
to visit
kick-ass-
Orion's belt. Is that possible?
Yes, that might be possible. That is a longer trip, so that'll take a wormhole, but it may be in our lifetime that we're able to open a wormhole. I mean, it has implication as well on life extension, and so
Wait
on.
a second. So if the universe is expanding and it's actually expanding
Because it's growing.
it's growing and it's growing more and more rapidly.
Yeah.
Is this exactly, because again, it's all the same, like paralleling.
Right.
Is this exactly how our technology will go too? Like all of a sudden we'll be like, oh, look, I can fly. Oh, look, I'm on Orion's belt all of a sudden. Like,
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, exactly. It's like
wow.
before, you could get a little far away from the cave, to go hunting and come back to the cave. That was pretty well how far you could go. And then we got better at going farther, right? We got horses and stuff. And then we got cars. We got a little farther. And then we got planes. And now we got a little farther. And then all of a sudden, we can go in our solar system, right? And then gravity control. So basically, our modern evolution of technology is all because we learned to control electromagnetic fields, right? With Maxwell's equation, Faraday's work, and all this, we learn how to make electricity, control charge, control electromagnetic fields so we can communicate to our phones and all this stuff. The next step is we're going to learn to control gravity, right? And then all of a sudden,
We're going to remember how to control gravity.
we're going to remember. Very good. Very good. Very good. That's good. Yeah, exactly. There's evidence that was done before.
Okay, well, where are you going to go?
So, well, I think the first
Where's your ultimate destination? Where's your vacation?
in my case,
Yes.
I get a 1,000-year vacation after
Yes,
this
where's your
mission.
1,000-year vacation? Where are you taking it?
Another universe. I'm going straight out for
I'm
another-
going wherever you're going because I feel like you've got your finger on the pulse.
Thank you. I mean, I think initially, just like planes at first were doing like inside the continent flying, short distances, and then intercontinental
Yeah.
flight and stuff. I think initially we're going to be able to birth our civilization into our solar system, meaning we'll be able to easily go to planetary systems, Mars, the moons of Jupiter and so on.
Wow.
And that already will be a huge step in our evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you ask any astronaut that has been in space and looked back at the Earth, and all of them report the same feeling. It's like, oh, wow, it's so easy to feel like everybody's one.
Yeah.
The
And
one
it's
that-
not flat.
Yeah, and it's not flat, correct. And so it will be a change in consciousness for people to even just look back at the Earth and feel, oh, yeah, well, of course, we're just one race, right?
But do you think that we'll actually be thinking back, or will we just be in a new existence without like the not perspective, that's not the right word, but it will be just a fluid evolution that will be a new norm?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Or will we be looking back at ourselves going, damn, I'm smart, look at that, holy crap, we're on Jupiter's moon right now. Can you believe when we just lived on Earth? Dude, that sucked.
Of course, for our generation, we'll probably have some of these thoughts. Wow, look at where we were.
Look, if I'm on Jupiter's moon in my lifetime, I'm definitely going to be saying that.
Right. But the generation future won't even
any
have a
different.
concept
Yeah.
of being stuck on the surface of a planet.
Totally.
It'll be like, wow, what must have been really bad. Just like when we think of people in the past that
Right.
couldn't even go a few miles,
Right. Right.
or change
Right.
continents.
Right.
Right. So I think that change, and this is just a result of one thing, is to actually understand some fundamental physics about the structure of space. It's just one thing. It's just one discovery, right? And just like Maxwell's equation, just like, Einstein relativity, it changed things. Quantum theory, Max Planck quantum theory, like a lot of the devices we use today is because these equations were written. Well, it's just a new equation that define gravity more fundamentally, and it will change everything.
Thank you for thinking different. Thank you for thinking outside of the book.
Thank you. I appreciate. It's been a long journey, and I'm really grateful to have had it. Yeah. And I'm grateful as well for the people that did the work before me, because like I said, I just put the pieces together that were already there. And I'm grateful as well for the people that resisted it, because they forced me to be very rigorous and to, really push forward and continue. So it's part of the journey, how do you polish the crystal,
That's a great perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.